Hello and welcome to Camp Xbox. Wipeout and F-Zero are two sci-fi racing series that are some of my favorite racing titles for PlayStation and Nintendo consoles. But what if I told you that Xbox had a sci-fi racing game of its own, called Quantum Redshift? It's an original Xbox exclusive racing game made by team members who worked on the Wipeout games. The series stopped at this entry, and a planned sequel was cancelled, and I played it recently to see if it deserved that sequel. Today I will tell you its history, its lasting impact, and my experience with it. All footage was captured off of original hardware, and I want to thank my YouTube channel members, campers, and camp counselors. Thank you for your support. Let's go ahead and look into this game's history. The developer's story dates back to 1998. 6 team members of Psygnosis Games were getting tired of how large and corporate the company was getting. The company had a long development history, but one of its biggest hits was the Wipeout series. It was a futuristic racer that was extremely fast and had a loud dance soundtrack. The 6 team members who worked on this game went on to form Curly Monsters. And the first game they would work on was N-Gen Racing for the PlayStation, which was a flight racing game. After this, they started working on a new game titled Neon. It was a futuristic racer similar in vein to the Wipeout series. While working on it, they showed off their work to Microsoft, and Microsoft liked what they saw. They gave the project $1 million, and Curly Monsters worked hard to develop something similar to Wipeout, but entirely its own, focusing more on character and story to work alongside the game's racing. While Curly Monsters developed the game, Microsoft would market it and manage its release. Microsoft decided to change the game's name to Quantum Redshift from Neon. Microsoft would also update some of the game's aesthetics to be more like a comic book, and they even created a tie-in comic book. In a Eurogame interview, from which I got a lot of information from and I highly recommend reading, co-founder of Curly Monsters Neil Thompson talks about how much he dislikes this, and he hates the cover that Microsoft made for this game. Redshift was shown at E3 in 2002, and outlets like IGN gave it a positive reception. IGN loved the game's look and sense of speed. With that, they moved into its release in September 2002, making this an Xbox exclusive before the Xbox 1-year anniversary. On September 17th, 2002, it was released in North America. It was released in October in Europe and November in Japan. I had very little experience with this game, but I was excited to hop into it recently and give it a complete playthrough. Let me go ahead and tell you how I felt about it, breaking it down piece by piece, starting with plot.
私はレーサーとして尊敬されてるの。何よ、あんたなんか顔だけじゃない。
Funny enough, there is a plot section in this racing game review, and I'll be honest, it's not a major factor in the game. But you can tell the creators wanted to flesh out a world, and I feel like it's worth talking about because the plot gives this game a nice flair. Quantum Redshift is set 100 years in the future, when an armed racing game is one of the top sports. In the game, you get to pick between 16 different characters, all with their own racing tracks. You get a backstory for each character in the game through the menus and the manual. Some are major pop stars, and others are just racing fanatics. And that's not it as far as story goes. When you select each character for tournament mode, you get a cutscene with each one. They talk about their aspirations on their own personal track, but they have dialogue scenes with each person in the tournament depending on where you're racing. It's usually only a couple lines and it's not really long, but it reminds me of fighting games when each character has banter with each other before the fight. The dialogue isn't riveting, but it gives this game a uniqueness that I like. I also like that each character is voiced in their own native language. With everyone interacting with each other, it gives each vehicle a personality over something with a faceless driver. The best part of it all is that every racer has a nemesis. This is usually saved for the last race and determines the final cutscenes. If you beat them, you get a cutscene for when they're destroyed and they vow vengeance. and you unlock the nemesis to play, and you can see their side of the story. It's neat, and every character in the game is memorable. It's a simple plot, you can skip it all and be completely fine, but I appreciate something about the world building here. It focuses on the game as if it were more about the character than the vehicle, which gives it an F-Zero feeling while still being its own thing. I was surprised to come out of this racing title thinking the general plot was a great time. Quantum Redshift is a highly fast-paced racer that has you using a hovering vehicle on futuristic tracks. Instead of only racing on future roads, you will get some off-roading too, but it will all be done while hovering. You should know what to expect if you've played a racing game like this. You accelerate down the track and move all around with an added power slide to take corners tighter. Redshift controls perfectly for a racing game. It's speedy with speeds reaching over 900 miles per hour. Luckily, the controls are so smooth that it's easy to handle. Racing simply feels excellent, an essential part of any racing game. If it handles well and matches excellent track design, you've already completed many pieces of the experience. It's exhilarating, weaving corners and dominating some challenging AI. Redshift also has a simple battle mechanic implemented into it. Red pickups give you homing missiles, blue gives you non-homing missiles, and yellow gives you a shield so you can block incoming attacks. All of these are tied to their specific button colors on your controller, and it works perfectly. Every character gets a unique version of each weapon, but they all generally do the same thing. The battle system is easy to understand, but when you move past the amateur tournaments, with each character in expert and above, the AI becomes ruthless, and they will use everything in their arsenal to stop you. You must use shields constantly and fight off enemies with your weapons. You can only use one pickup at a time, so if you grab multiple and you already have one, they don't stack. So if you use your shield once, you can't use it again until you pick up another after using it. This makes some races tense because these weapons serve as the means to keep you back with the rest of the racers, and you will have to fight tooth and nail to come in first. There's no silver or bronze in this game, you have to come in first. So it's a tough race to the finish, but with controlling so well, it's never frustrating. It's constantly engaging, and that tenseness that comes from close wins is rewarding. It's a blast to play the whole time. There are multiple game modes for you to play in this, from your classic quick race and time attack modes to multiplayer. Multiplayer with anyone in this game is a surefire way to have a great game night. It supports up to 4 local players, and with the game's many weapons and vehicles, there's a lot of variety for multiple people. The primary game mode is the tournament mode, where you'll pick a character and race through all difficulties to fight your nemesis. It's a classic tournament mode, but a feature that helps make this more personalized is the upgrade system. When you finish a race, win or lose, you gain money from the race. With this money, you can funnel it into improving your ship by increasing your shield, giving it better weapons, or a longer turbo. You can feel the difference too, and it's a nice incentive that even though you might lose races, you know you're still earning money to help make races easier. It gives a sense of progression outside of the races. On top of this, the game already has a bunch of unlockables. You'll unlock characters, Easter eggs to make the game just a little different, and new tracks. I miss the days when games had incentives to play like this. I think unlockables are a ton of fun. You need to beat the game with all the characters to unlock stuff, and it never feels like a grind because it's such a fun experience. I just wish the game had more new tracks to unlock, instead of just unlocking reversed sections of tracks. The track design though is solid with many different locales to explore. Some are wide open desert expanses, and others are tight, winding mountains. The tight ones are hard to get used to at first, and some layouts are brutal with its compactness, which might be one of my few negatives. It's a minor element and only some of the more challenging tracks have this issue, but once you memorize the track enough, you really get it down. It's all about track memorization, knowing shortcuts and how to take certain turns. I love the wider tracks though, which allow you to swoop through multiple paths to try to beat competitors. Quantum Redshift is an excellent playing racer, with a lot to do and incentives to keep you playing. It had me hooked for a while trying to unlock everything, and with how hectic the game gets, it never stopped being fun. The racing gameplay here is excellent. Quantum Redshift looks excellent on the original Xbox with its widescreen support. The colors are bright and the fidelity shines through. The game captures blazingly fast speeds perfectly. The game has a constant haze that isn't bad and captures that sense of speed. When you go over water or if it's raining, water droplets stay on the screen too, and the water looks fantastic. It all comes together to create something that uses Xbox technology, especially with how the game runs consistently at 60 frames per second. I never saw any severe dip during my playthrough. The art design is solid too, especially with the character models. The CG characters created have a lot of personality, and they all stand out. The models themselves are huge, and on the original Xbox, they look great. The CG all around is top notch, and I like how each character's nationality is a significant part of them, which goes into the track design as well. There are snowy mountains, desert sands, and futuristic cities. It's a game that hops all around, and no one track feels similar. The design and look of each track have a lovely aesthetic, and you're going to see a lot of the same track, but they're always exciting. That's because each track looks unique enough to have them stand out. The game has a visual look that makes it look great against its competitors. It's going for something futuristic, but has more of a grounded sci-fi feeling since most of it takes place on Earth. The look and design of Quantum Redshift are top notch, and it's simply one of the best looking games in the first year of the original Xbox, with tons of personality too.
Diese Berge kümmern sich nicht deine Schönheit, Jordan. Sie freuen sich über jedes Leben, das sie fordern können.
If you're a fan of Wipeout, you know the electronic soundtrack is an essential part of that experience. With Quantum Redshift, they went to one artist to create the music, and that's Junkie XL, an electronic artist who made a lot of trance music and is still very active in making film scores for popular movies like Furiosa, and even video games with games like Skull and Bones. Here was his first time composing a video game soundtrack, and this is the year that his remix of Elvis's A Little Less Conversation was a huge hit. He takes his electronic leanings and creates a great soundtrack. It's punchy and has a great kick with some great synths. It feels like you're at the club, but it goes through many sub-genres from trance to breakbeat. It feels like a slice of late 90s electronic music, and I love it. Racing to these songs feels so nostalgic and straight out of the future. I wish the soundtrack got more love because it's excellent. The sound all around is well done, especially the voice work. I love how each character speaks in their native language, and it adds authenticity to each character. A tiny touch I like is that the race countdown also changes language based on where you're at. The sound design all around with missile slamming and the quiet hum of the vehicles all work to build immersion in the game. The races feel fuller and busier because of all the noise from the other vehicles, which creates a great sound atmosphere. If you can't tell, I loved Quantum Redshift. It blew me away just how under the radar this game is, especially when you consider how entertaining of a racer it is on the Xbox. The Xbox had so many excellent racing games, and this is another one in that library. From having a fun small-scale story, great graphics, and a strong soundtrack, this game oozes with a sense of personality. It's a word that I keep saying, but it really has it. The gameplay we have seen before, but there is something about the whole package here that feels full of energy and it's exceptional. Throw in that the racing is fast, challenging, and controls extremely well, and you have an entertaining and memorable racing game. And I can only imagine that this would give you so much playtime in multiplayer. If you like racing games, then I say check this one out. It's so much fun and one of the best and most unique examples of the genre on the Xbox. I'm always happy to be enthused by an original Xbox exclusive. On my original Xbox ranking list, where I rank every game that I've covered on this channel so far, Quantum Redshift speeds into the top 10 out of the 87 games I've covered so far on the channel. And I'll say the top 20 itself has been so hard to place games because there are so many stellar games now, and we haven't even covered a lot of the best on the console yet. Quantum Redshift goes in at number 5. I placed it above Ultimate Spider-Man because Redshift is more replayable, but I put it below Death Row because I do think Death Row is just slightly more replayable. When Quantum Redshift was released, it received mixed reviews. On Metacritic, it currently holds a 70 out of 100. Looking through the more negative reviews, like the one from G4, you will find that people were mainly tired of the genre and felt like nothing new was added. IGN gave it a 6.2, saying the game lacked style. GameSpot gave it a slightly higher score of 7.1, saying it was uninspired. Yet there are positive reviews out there for this one, and Official Xbox Magazine was on the very high end, giving it a 9 out of 10 in their December 2002 issue. They love the graphics, sound, and overall gameplay, and their only issues were the load times and that there was no Xbox Live support. The public reaction, though, was not a huge hit. It was not the next giant Xbox IP, and sales were not as high as Microsoft had hoped. It could be a mix of marketing, bad reviews, or the game cover, but it was not working for everyone. With its failure, Microsoft canceled its contract with developer Curly Monster for a second game, and that left the developer without any money to make a new game, and thus they shut down after making this. Unfortunately, leaving Curly Monsters with only 2 games in their catalog. Yet time has gotten kinder to this game, even though it's still relatively unknown. Many comments that I've seen have talked about how much they love this game and how criminally underrated it is. It holds a cult classic status in some Xbox gamers' heads, and while I'm sure there's some that don't love it, I think it's a very lovable game. The user aggregate website Backlogged has it at a 3.2 with only 45 plays, which I think is way too low of a number, because this is a racing game that I think many should check out. Quantum Redshift is truly a hidden gem on the console. But that does wrap it up for today. If you enjoyed today's review, be sure to leave a like as it really helps out the channel. Comment below with whatever you think I should do next. Or if you just enjoyed Quantum Redshift, you have any good memories or you're interested, I'd just love to hear from you. Also subscribe to keep up with the retro Xbox content. And I want to give a huge shout out to my YouTube channel members, campers, and camp counselors. Thank you so much for your support. You really help out the channel. And I'll see you here next time at Camp Xbox.